Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. As I go through my presentation, I think it's going to become apparent this is somewhat of a home week for me, come home week, because there's lots of connections and interactions here. Just curious, how many are growers or farmers in the room? Okay, we got one. There's quite a few familiar faces as researchers, I see. And of course, we have some folks from Milken and Israel, which again, I'll comment on Old Home Week. Almonds, we're on a roll for success, I guess, if you'd call it. Our acreage has just really gone up quite a bit over the years. And actually, one of the friendly debates that Dan Putnam, and I've had the pleasure of working with Dan in the past and some other service-related venues, the friendly discussion we have is when almonds in acreage are going to surpass alfalfa. Alfalfa hay has been #1 in acreage in California. And actually, even this morning, we were thinking maybe this is the time. Almonds now are over 1 million acres, bearing and non-bearing. And of course, just like Nadi mentioned, all the nut crops, almonds and pistachios and walnuts are definitely on a roll in California. And of course, Gene meows here. Processing tomatoes is certainly a very important niche, sustainable niche. You can see the blue arrows increasing. Well, with success comes attention and scrutiny. And this is actually a cartoon from Jack Ullman with the Sacramento Bee. And as many of you know, almonds went through a pretty intense period of water shaming. And here we have Hester on one side wearing the A for adultery. This is the old public shaming, but now we have the new public shaming as the almond grower with the A on their chest. And you can see that the almond grower is waist deep in water. What have I done here? Press escape. Okay. Well, it went away anyway. The remote. Yeah, where's the remote? And I hope, does the remote have a pointer on it too?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Good. So anyway, we've gone through a period of messaging to turn the story around, and actually we continue what you'd call a maintenance messaging, because as you'll see, we want to make sure that almonds have a place in California, and we're both sustainable in how we practice our farming, and we want to be perceived as sustainable. Some key other messages besides saying that we've reduced our water usage or increased our water efficiency over the last 20 years, 33%, includes issues like, hi Karen. Well, for instance, over 70% of our acreage is micro-irrigated, and that's just, it's on the increase. Another key statistic here is 83% of our growers use at least some component of demand irrigation practices for irrigating their almonds. And again, I cannot underscore the importance of the partnership that we've had over the years with the UC, both campus-based folks and Extension in moving us along the irrigation improvement continuum, if you will. However, with that positive messaging, we have a sustainability program and it's a win-win for the growers. The growers do their self-assessments in various areas, and irrigation and nutrition is certainly an important area. And it's an opportunity for them to benchmark themselves against their peers, learn about new practices, and kick the tires and try some new things. From the Almond Board standpoint, it's a valuable repository of statistics and information, and you'll see in my talk that has two big pluses. One is in terms of what we need to emphasize and outreach on the information we have right now, and of course what we need to be researching in the future. You'll see here, go back. Our baby isn't necessarily as pretty as we thought it was or is. For instance, the yellow just indicates areas where we can definitely improve. Issues like using ET as a framework for scheduling irrigation. Distribution uniformity is huge. There's a tendency, and it's not only in almonds but many other crops, the growers put the system in and say, I'm a wonderful person, and just walk away from it without maintaining it. And there's some horror stories out there in terms of efficiency. And then, believe it or not, even measuring the amount of water that you're applying. So these are all areas, and I'll be talking about our outreach program that we're certainly emphasizing. Well, with all this water shaming and wanting to be assured and that we do have a future in California and we are sustainable, we have developed this accelerated innovation management program, and it really ups the ante on a lot of the things we were doing anyway. And you'll see there's 4 quadrants. The first quadrant is water management and efficiency. I'll be talking about, by the way, 3 of these 4 quadrants are very much water-centric. So you can see water is very important to us. The water management and efficiency is an outreach. Sustainable water resources, yet another water sector. Air quality is a big deal for us. I know we're not here for air quality, but obviously our mechanical harvest and the dust we produce is a critical issue. And actually, Karen Ross, I'll put her on the spot, from her days in grapes, working with the grape industry, said, you know what? People may love your product, but they don't necessarily like living next door to you. And then, I keep hitting the wrong buttons here. This quadrant is agronomics for the 22nd century, and which we're really doing is upping the ante and pushing the envelope in terms of the various segments of research that we're doing. And obviously a very important segment is irrigation and nutrition, so I'll be touching on that as well. I don't need to go through these with you because I've covered off on the detail, but you can see that we've also have a number of very important and what we initially called, very important collaborations with sustainable conservation. I know the individual after me is from Sustainable Agriculture Conservation, EDF, Environmental Defense Lab, and we're actually doing work on recharge with the Livermore Berkeley Lab. Just by way, SureHarvest is the entity that manages our sustainability program for us. Done a wonderful job, and then we've done quite a bit of aerial mapping of almonds, which has turned out to be a very useful and important tool with a company called Land IQ. In terms of outreach, we recently hired Spencer Cooper, who is the spearhead for that, and actually Spencer is over in Israel right now doing a tour, and thanks to Natty for setting that tour up and getting all the details lined out. Natty came up to me this morning, so I left him in the Negev. I ran home, packed my bag, and hopped on the plane to get here. So, Natty, we really appreciate that. And of course, the focus, Spencer comes from the commercial ag services sector, and his focus is boots on the ground, working with all the different stakeholders in the irrigation system. And you'll see here he has a shopping list of many of the things that he's working with. And one of the foundational aspects of this is this irrigation continuum. We went to the extension people and other experts in irrigation and said, you know, it's wonderful to do all this great research, but if you can move growers along a continuum, just applying what we know now, you're going to make big advances, and you'll see a little bit more about the continuum in the next slide. Spencer's developed a number of one-pagers that he can pass off to growers, a quick read on ET or when to start irrigating, a number of different issues. He's already, he started last fall. He's in the midst of workshops. And then actually much of his outreach, because he did come from the commercial sector, is reaching the growers through various service providers. And again, there's an array of activities he has there. What's really wanted to point this one out where he's tackling this whole issue of distribution uniformity, working with the service providers and then with the growers in terms of, let's go ahead and measure what you're doing, how you're doing, and how we can correct it. And of course, what happens, there's a multiplier effect there. If the people in the service provider sector understand what's going on, they can then reach out to a number of their other customers. Leveraging, it's been very effective and useful for Spencer to leverage the Almond board irrigation and nitrogen calculators. And Patrick Brown is here, and he was instrumental a few years ago in setting up a nitrogen budget for us. And this has been critically important because we have to meet regulatory issues through the Irrigated Lands Program. And for instance, the nitrogen calculator is a way for Spencer to get in the door, because the growers are mandatorily have to do this and say, I can help you do this. And oh, by the way, let's talk a little bit about your irrigation. And then also gives him an opportunity to go to the growers he works with and say, have you filled out one of these modules? You might learn something, and it's also going to help us with information. And just as a snippet here, here's just the cover sheet for the irrigation and nutrition module. This is the continuum I talked about, and it covers the 5 key areas of irrigation management down the side and across. And you'll see that we have 3 levels of proficiency. Beginner, what you call minimum, intermediate, and advanced. And what we're finding, of course, is that generally speaking, one size doesn't fit all. It's not like all growers, their operation is not all minimum, but there'll be a kind of a scatter pattern here, within this matrix as to where they are. And of course, what we would, and then we work certainly with the growers, particularly where they're at a minimum level. This minimum level is configured so that basically there's no capital investment, but just more management and understanding. And our aspirational goal is that someday, hopefully in the near future, every almond grower, and I say almond or almond, will be at this minimum level. Of course, that's an easy feat. There's only 6,800 almond growers. Here's a sampling of the sheets. And by the way, if you go to our website, Orchard Practices, you pull down the window, and there's an irrigation page and section. You can pick up all these resources there. Here's the irrigation calculator that we've developed. One of the things that my colleague, cohort, Gabrielle Ludwig, after getting into it, said, my God, all these different spreadsheets and everything, can't we help people out by just unifying into one stop, fill it out? This, again, is managed by SureHarvest. The growers have the opportunity to share it, or to not share it, but to leave that calculator on their server and come back to it, or they can do a one-shot. It's up to them. Obviously, some people are very concerned about their confidentiality, and this is the nitrogen budget that I've talked about. And again, Patrick and a number of people here at UC Davis were instrumental in actually creating Almonds as a role model in the area of nitrogen management. The second section has to do with sustainable water resources. Currently, we are conducting recharge studies with a whole host of cooperators. One key focus for us is to understand the guidelines for when you can apply excess water to almonds without hurting them, and what are the best practices. But as well, we're getting into issues like, okay, if we put all this water on, what happens to the nitrogen and all the bad stuff? So, and that's not an easy chore, but you can see we've got a wide array of players here. Sustainable Conservation, Land IQ, UC Davis, and again, I've mentioned the Lawrence Berkeley Lab. They've got some pretty neat technology, as you know, between Berkeley, Stanford, and NASA. They got some neat technology to map out what's going on underneath. This comment, or this phrase here, recycle municipal wastewater, that's aspirational on our part. We really haven't dove into that, and it's going to take more than just almonds. And the only thing I can tell you is that obviously Israel is just leagues and light years ahead of California in this area. Karen's smiling, and there's a lot that we can do. We're Neanderthals in that area. I mentioned dust. This is a critical issue for us. I know this is water, but I wanted you to be aware that dust is a big deal for us. We have an outreach program on dust. For growers, we've done research that says even with the existing equipment, you can tune it up and adjust it so that you minimize your dust. In addition to that, there's some newer equipment out using the current technology that really reduces dust. And then looking out into the future, we're starting to look, well, maybe we ought to reconfigure the almond orchard of the future so that we don't drop the almonds onto the ground, as is the case with a number of other crops. The other aspect or component to this is that we've done a lot of life cycle and carbon footprint work. We're actually working, EDF has taken our data with a view towards where can we leverage that in terms of carbon credits. The last area has to do with 22nd century agronomics. Here are 9 areas that we pulled our growers, our committee members together and held them for 2 days in Davis and said, okay, if you were to envision the orchard of the future, what would it look like? And we looked at all these different areas, and we actually have some verbiage and template for that. And you'll see that it's more than just research. There's research, outreach, education, and policy. And again, irrigation nutrition is critically important in this area, and you can see there's our mission statement in this area. We want to develop irrigation and nutrition systems that account for spatial variability of orchards and soils better to make our existing acreage more efficient in the longer term, even get down to the single plant level. But if we can just suss out what's going in the orchard and set up the systems that way initially, that'd be great. In addition, there's a number of key precision ag components that come to this. You can see that there. I would love to see us have a better way to assess tree water status. The way, as you know, the pressure chamber, pressure bomb, I think most of you know about that. It's very tedious, so I'm pretty intent on that area. And then, I bring this up as the last point here, and it segues into my last slide. Irrigation, nutrition management, decision support, and operating systems that are easy for growers and operators to use. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but believe me, the Almond Board has been intentional on irrigation and nutrition research. I've got 2 pages of recent projects that cover a wide array of what we're doing. Then to get back to this orchard variability, this is some work that Alan Fulton did up in the Nichols orchard just north of here. He mapped out the soil variability and then tracked the yield. Well, by golly, if we can address that variability and get that yield up there in a consistent high level, it's a win-win for all in terms of efficiency and water use. And my last slide segues us into the collaborative relationship and project that we've developed with Netafim. And what's interesting, a number of you know that a group of us went to Israel this last year as part of a CDFA delegation, and we really appreciate all that the Milken Institute did for us, and certainly Netafim. But that trip was a catalyst for this cooperative project because we've got, let's see here. Well, I'm not going to, we've got Don Cameron, Terra Nova Ranch, who was on the trip, Khaled Bali, who's UC irrigation specialist, and myself, and we started talking, and with Maddie, let's get this thing together and move it forward. So basically, I won't go through all the detail here, but basically, this is taking the whole issue of zone irrigation to the next level or perhaps state-of-the-art level with Netafim technology. And you'll see that we're collecting the background information in 2017 right now with the intent that, orchard performance and mapping, so on and so forth. 2018 winter, we'll get the system installed. And then 2018, and I put 2 question marks because in irrigation, I don't know that you want to say there's a definite end to a project until you've got some good data. The intent is that it may be 3 years, but it could be more. But we're gonna execute the project, and I know Brent from Gallo is also with grapes is collaborating with Netafim, Gallo and Netafim, and they've got version, I guess it's version 2 or version 3. The advantage of being behind them is that we're now at version 4 of the Netafim technology. So we very much look forward to that. So.